Welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast, where we talk about struggles and celebrations that leaders and entrepreneurs experience on their journey to success. I'm your host, Kristina, and I'm passionate about helping you achieve massive amounts of success at work and at home. We'll talk about all things people and organizational wellness, share relatable stories, and feature insightful guests because quality people and processes are at the heart of every success story. Ready to learn, grow, and have fun? Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast. I'm your host, Kristina Schmidt. Today, you have just me. I've had a few guests on recently, but today it's just going to be me chatting with you. But anybody who's been following me in real time, you may have heard me talking about my course that I was launching, the Cornerstone framework. So the Cornerstone How Leaders Are Made course. So this is actually the second time that I've had a Cornerstone program. This is the second iteration of it. The first one was very secular, had 4 modules to it. The second one, I took a Catholic route because the first one was missing something. It was missing a big section that had to do with how important faith and holiness and healing particularly are for a leader to be effective, because so many times wounds get in our way. But this is not about that today. So what we're going to talk about today was a key element that got added in. It's not faith-based at all, but it got added into the second generation of the Cornerstone program. And it was such a big takeaway for some of the people in there that I wanted to share a little bit about it, because I know when I was a leader, I was struggling with it. And I know many, many leaders struggle with it, both in their work life and their personal lives. So today I want to talk about delegation. Delegation is one of those key things that gets utilized a lot. I'm going to delegate this, I'm going to delegate that. But I think that people fail to understand the complexity that is actually in delegation and really everything that's all encompassed around it. And therefore, we either don't do it at all, because so many of us are like, well, it's just easier to do it myself, which, spoiler alert, that's one of the problems we're going to talk about today. Or they try it and it just doesn't work. And maybe that person just couldn't get it, or it's better that I just kept it myself because obviously delegating didn't work. So we continue to reinforce our bad habits and our lack of delegation by not doing it well. So I want to spend some time talking about it today. And in particular, I'm going to talk about 3 things that get in the way and 3 things that we can do to help it not get in the way or to do it better. So I'm just going to get started in it. The first problem that gets in the way for many, many leaders is that they think that the people they're going to delegate to are too busy to be delegated to. I know I personally struggled with this one. When, we're in manufacturing, everybody has a full-time job. They are all like working 60 hours a week, putting weekend and evening time in. And you're like, how can I take something from my plate and give it to them? And it is a mindset thing. But ultimately, whenever you start something new, you have to take something away, because there are still only so many hours in the day. There's only so many hours that we should be at work or really doing anything, but there's only so many hours in the day. We can't add more time. So when you add a new project or you add a new habit or you try something new, you have to take something out. Otherwise, you're going to sacrifice family time, you're going to sacrifice sleep, or you're just going to crumble and like nothing's going to get done, or maybe something important won't get done. So as a leader, a solution to this problem is to sit down with the person you're going to delegate with and have a discussion around their priorities, the business priorities, and just really take a look at what they should stop doing or what they can pause on, or what can you take on for them, or what could they delegate to one of their team members. So there's a lot of different options, but the key thing I want you to take away from this is talk. Talk to the person you're going to delegate to. Talk to them, see, okay, what are we doing? Let's look at what you're doing. Let's see what doesn't make sense for you to continue doing, or where we can say, okay, well, rather than spending this many hours doing that, we'll drop these things that you're doing from it because actually they're not helping us right now, or we're prioritizing this task more than others. And so just having the conversation is very helpful to make sure people aren't doing something that's not being utilized by the team or needed by the company, and B, just to let's restructure. Let's make sure we're doing the right things. So if you lean it into working genius, let's take a minute and wonder about our schedule. Let's wonder about your task list. Let's wonder about what we're doing and what our teams are doing, so that we can take a step back and say, oh, well, maybe we're spending all this time doing this, but it's not achieving the benefit that we want, or this new thing that we want to get doing or delegate the project to, that's higher priority. We can actually live for 6 months without doing this other thing. And when that project is done, we either decide at that point to start it up again, or we say, actually, we didn't need it. And it's a good trial period for that anyway as well. So sit with the person you're going to delegate to and just discuss, okay, where do we fit this in? What has to come out? Because again, when we start something new, when we say yes to something, we need to be saying no to something else, because there isn't just more time to create, unfortunately. Because wouldn't it be wonderful if we had unlimited time? Maybe not. Who knows? All right. Reason number 2. So I feel like I'm dumping my work. Okay, I know I felt this a lot as well. So it kind of links to the first one, but a lot of times when we have roles, so I'll explain it a bit more. A lot of times when we have roles, we have, okay, these are the tasks that we should be doing, and these are the tasks that my team should be doing, and these are the tasks that, so-and-so should be doing. And, we get stuck in these, this is the thing that we should be doing, but ultimately our jobs are to achieve the results. We need to, convey our messages and develop our team and that sort of thing to achieve the results. But our job is to achieve the results. So as leaders, we have a team that we use and we engage to achieve our results. So asking them to do something or to take on a project level so that you can do something else is okay, because ultimately you're responsible for the results that come out of that team. And that work is shared amongst the team. So we have to think differently about the work. I feel like I used to get stuck in the mindset that, oh gosh, I'm shirking my responsibilities if I ask someone else to do it, or I can't take credit for the work they're doing, because that's like that bad, like you hear about those bad bosses that take credit for the ideas of their team. There's a balance there, right? Ultimately, as the leader, you're responsible for the successes and the failure of your team. When it's a team effort. But yes, certain individuals might get credit within that team, but allowing that to say, oh, I can't ask them to do it because I'm dumping work on them, that's not the way the team works, right? We have a body of work that has to get done. As a leader, our job is to lead the team, not necessarily do the things. So we have to be giving them work and assessing it with them. So going back to number 1, assessing that body of work that they're doing in order to achieve the results that we need as a team or as a business. So a solution to this. So a lot of times, the first things we want to delegate are those awful tasks for us. And so for me in particular, it would be something around either a very tedious sort of like digging in work, or, tenacity level work, if we talk working genius language, or it would be even like the following up of a project management sort of thing. Like those would be tasks that I struggle to do for various reasons, because they're not my genius, because I might have a wound in the way, something like that. But to not feel like I'm dumping, understanding the working geniuses of yourself and the working geniuses, competencies, and frustrations of your team. This is literally the definition of one person's trash is another person's treasure. So there are people that are on your team that absolutely love to do the things that you hate, or the things that you dread, or the things that you just avoid doing, so they never come off your to-do list. So there are people that like it. And remember that, because you're not dumping on them if you're actually giving them some work that they like. You're actually giving them something and you're engaging them more. You're giving them a gift, rewarding them for the work that they do and how they function in their work by giving them more work that they like. So understanding the entire, like all the geniuses of your team. So looking at your team map and saying, okay, hey, I've got this whole boatload of like competency and frustration work that needs to come off because I'm spending way too much time in it. It's draining my energy and I'm taking longer than it should take to do because it is not my strength. And looking at your team member and saying, wow, this person would be amazing at task 1 and task 4. So let's see if we can work that into their day. And maybe, they've got something that I would love to do, and you can trade off, or you trade off with another team member. So again, understanding and really breaking down the geniuses and frustrations of the entire team can help you reward team members, not dump on them with more work of delegation. And let's get into the third one. And this one I hear all the time, and I do it myself still all the time, like with my kids and with family when they try to come and help, or anyone who comes to try to help. I think, oh, it's just faster if I do it myself because it'll take too much time for me to train you to do this. And I've got this way that I do it, and I just don't know how to explain it to you. Have you said that one before? I know I do a lot. So solution to this, it's a mindset thing. It's a mindset flip, and then I'm going to tell you how to use it. But yes, you're right. It is faster this time for you to just do it yourself. Absolutely it is. One time it is. So if the job is one time, then you know what? Maybe it is faster. But if it comes up every month, and if it comes up every week, or even every day, even if it comes up once a year, it is still time that you're spending every single year doing this thing. That if you took a little bit of extra time right now, think of it like an investment. So I'm going to invest instead of we'll say it's a yearly task and it takes you a week. Well, it's kind of significant, but it takes you a week. So you're going to invest, instead of just 1 week this year, you're going to invest 2 weeks. And then the next year you don't have to do it. And then the year after that, you don't have to do it. Maybe there's if it's a yearly thing, there's probably some filing that happens periodically through the year. So you're not doing that either. So think of all the time that you're saving if you invest in that time upfront, or one-time investment. And we have to think like that, because when we as leaders continue to think that we can do it better, or we can do it faster, not only are we insulting our team by basically saying, you're not as good as me, we're not giving them the opportunity to show their skills and show off their strengths, but we're also drowning ourselves in a ridiculous amount of work that we're paying other people to be able to actually accomplish. So it's like a lose-lose-lose to continue to get stuck in that mindset of, I just better off to do it myself. So you have to come up with a way to get out of that mindset and see it as an investment of your time. So it's a wise investment of your time to train somebody to do this thing. All right, so that's the big shift of the mindset. But the second shift of a mindset that I want you to make in this one, so this one's big. All right, so shift mindset number 1 is that it's an investment of time to teach somebody to do it. Mindset shift number 2 is that delegating is not dumping. So it kind of mirrors number 2, or my second reason, but delegating is not about dumping the work you don't like. It's about developing people. So as a leader, it's our job to develop the team to be successful. In an ideal world, you develop somebody to take over for you so you can move up, or if you're the business owner, you can take a step back and retire someday or sell the business. But ultimately, all of our goals should be to work ourselves out of a job in a good way. And if you're in the right organization, it will lead to promotion or to something better when you do that. So that, we don't want to hang on to our jobs and our roles, because when we do that, we're not leading. We're just doing the things. So if we think of delegation as development, it's different. It feels different. It's not just a one-time, here, I'm just going to teach you to do this thing, and now you're stuck doing this awful thing that I've had to do for years. I'm going to put a caveat out here. There are some jobs that are just a grunt job and no one loves doing it, but it has to get done. But it's like sharing the wealth in that and understanding that that is not my whole job. That is some of my job. So just caveat there. But when we think of delegation as development, we start to think, so I want to think about the word development in general. So I looked this up before, but the definition of development. So first of all, it's a noun, and some synonyms are growth and evolution. So evolution, think about that. Like that is a changing, evolving. That's a good word, right? That is like changing and becoming better, becoming more. And so the definition is the process in which someone or something grows or changes and becomes more advanced. So don't we want our team to be more advanced? Because if we have a more advanced team, a more skilled team, they are doing more, they are doing better, they are like rising to the top and becoming hugely effective. So when we think of delegation, we have to think that we're developing the people to do more. So they're taking a project on. That is development because they're going to develop all kinds of leadership skills, planning skills, follow-up skills, communication skills while they're running this project. So huge development. If we ask them to do some data collection for a report that we have to do every single month, they're learning about the data. They're learning how to gather the data. They might be self-learning. I delegated to somebody, but self-learning about how to quickly get the data and make it a huge improvement. So I used to delegate to this one person and he was amazing at, I would say, hey, can you do this? I know it's kind of grunt work to kind of put all this together, but he would do it once, figure out what it was needed, and then he'd figure out how to automate it. So I was like, I'm going to delegate to this guy all the time because but he would self-learn and teach himself how to do it. And then now we've just freed up more time for improvement, which is amazing. So people are going to take things and develop it. And that was development for him to learn the skill, but then also, be able to understand the data. And then he would understand why we did the data or why we needed the data. And we'd be able to put it all together and have it quickly while nobody was spending time doing it. So it'd been a huge loss if it was sat on my plate longer. So when we think about development like that, we have to think about delegation like development. Development is a process. So delegation also is a process. So for those on the YouTube, I like to say the YouTube, it kind of reminds me, throwback of the Facebook. So anyway, for those on the YouTube, you can have a look at this chart. So this is a diagram from the Cornerstone program. I'm going to pop it up on the screen. So it's a bit complex to look at as a whole. But when you start to understand the pieces of it, which we get into a lot of detail on it in the program, you start to understand how there is an ebb and flow of how people learn and how that connects to how we're delegating to them. So it's a concept called situational leadership, and it's really well described in the book, Leadership in the 1 Minute Manager. So have a read of that book. It's fantastic. It's quick. It's novel-ish, like with a bit of textbooky bits into it. But it's got a flow to it. So if you start in kind of the bottom right-hand corner, and we think about how people learn. So when people learn things, there's a stage at which point they don't know what they don't know. So I always liken it to driving. Okay, so I think about my 5-year-old. He's starting to kind of see things, but like when you're 3, 4, or 5 years old and you think about driving, like it's literally, it looks like just turning the steering wheel, right? So that's what driving is. Like it has nothing to do with gas pedals, blinkers, mirrors, like nothing. And like the thought that there would be a process for how to turn the wheel and you're not just going to spin it out of control, like that's unheard of. You have no idea what you don't know about driving at that point. So at that point, if you were starting to teach somebody, you would be very directive in how you assigned things. And you would say, no, you're going to do this, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do this. Then you'll do this. Then you'll do that. So very directive, very small task delegation. So that's kind of your level 1 and a level 1 leadership style. Now, what happens if you stay in that level 1 leadership style is people would get really annoyed because eventually even a 5-year-old would kind of learn the steps of driving if you started directing their behavior. So you have to move quickly out of that and you start moving into, we call it level 2. So thinking about level 2 sort of learning. So the first one stage of learning is you don't know what you don't know. The second stage of learning is now you know what you don't know. So think like a 12, 13-year-old, never been behind the wheel of a real car, even maybe a toy car. And they're like, what do I do? I put it in gear. How? So like they know they have to put it in gear, but they're like, oh, I pushed the brake and okay. Oh, drive the D, not the 1. Okay. So you're learning, but you don't know. And that can be very frustrating. So as you move into that type of level with the delegation, so now you don't have to give them every single task, but you can give them slightly bigger things and let them go try it, because people learn when they try. Maybe they've been shown a little bit kind of through level 1, they take it away. Now they can go try it a little bit. But you have to be more supportive because they will likely fail. So when you're learning to drive, you might forget to put the brakes on early enough for a turn and you're like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to fall over. I feel like I'm going to flip the car as you're turning. So you're going to have failures. And so they're going to need like a high supportive behavior and still a high directive behavior. So you can start merging, like instead of just task, and give them a little bit of leeway, but you have to be there to support when they have questions, when they fail, when it doesn't go quite to plan, or when they underestimate or overestimate something. So it is a very supportive. So the next stage, so the third level of learning. So now you know it. So it's called conscious competence. So you can do it, but you're thinking about everything. So you're like think about the person like who's in driver's training and they're learning how to drive and they've got the basics down, but they're still saying, okay, remember to look in the mirror. Remember to look in the mirror. Oh, I'm turning left so I don't kind of go around the corner. Otherwise I might get smacked by those people. And like they're really thinking consciously about everything. So as people start to move into that area, they don't need you to tell them anymore. And if you did tell them, they might get really annoyed with you. So you don't want to tell them that anymore, but you want to kind of let them go and say, okay, well, what would you do here? Let's discuss your plan and then you go do it. And sometimes you might correct their plan before they go do it, or maybe ask some really good questions to make them say, actually, maybe I might rethink that, or offer a couple of suggestions. But sometimes you might let them say, okay, let's try it. See how it goes and come back. So again, they might fail, or again, they might get frustrated when you're trying to help them correct their plan a little bit in advance. So you still have to be very supportive. So it's that very high supportive behavior that they're going to very much need in this point. Otherwise, they're going to get really mad, frustrated, fall back to old habits, or say, I don't want to do this anymore because look, I've been through 2 stages of being very frustrated and I'm sick of it. But so that's where that supporting comes in. And then this last level, this is when you start to see some real fruits of your labor of delegating, because this person's going to move into the unconscious competence. So again, thinking about driving, like who remembers driving to work today? There are probably people who listen to this podcast while they're driving. Are you thinking about when to turn your blinker on? Or are you thinking about, looking in your rear view mirror? No, you're just doing it because you've done it so many times. Sometimes you forget what you're doing and where you're driving to because you've just done it all the time. Like you're like, I have no recollection of driving to work today. So might be a little scary to think about, but at the same time, it doesn't matter because you're on autopilot to some extent. So that's when you move into that level 4 leadership. And this is fantastic because this is where you as a leader get your time back. So you put some extra time in through those first 3 stages. And now you don't have to tell people as much anymore. So they're at that point where, okay, you just say, hey, go to the store. Perfect. You don't have to talk about the driving at all. And they're confident that they can do it. They're like, yeah, I got it. But sometimes you need to give a little support still. So we call it low directive and low supportive behavior. So it all links together with how people learn, how people like what people need from us as leaders. And so I love this diagram because it just makes it so easy to say, okay, where is this person? And it's a curve, right? So nobody's ever perfectly in the box when they need exactly that. But you can check yourself and say, am I giving them enough support right now? Because actually they do have some competencies, but I'm still telling them a lot of what to do. So I might be really frustrating them. Or you can say, hey, what do you need from me? Am I giving you too much information, not enough information? You can start asking about it because you've broken it down and you can see that there are different levels that they'll be at. So to kind of wrap this one up in a bow, when you're feeling like it's faster to do yourself, if you know you're going to do that task again, because most tasks in our work are repeat, right? We do them over and over and over. Then it is not faster to do it yourself. It's faster one time, but every time you have to do it, now you spent that time. So thinking of it as an investment in your team's development, and then taking that time to develop your team, taking that time to develop that team member through those stages and breaking down those stages of learning for them. And then that helps you know how to lead them through that delegation. All right, so I hope this was helpful. If you want a little bit more help with this, I have a free resource on my website. I call it the team hiring process, but essentially hiring is just a bigger version of delegation. So when you decide, hey, I'm going to hire a person to do these roles, you're deciding I'm going to delegate this body of tasks. So in this resource, you use your working genius of your team and yourself and how people are spending their time. And you're using that to figure out who's going to do what. So it's a fantastic resource to use to figure out what you need to delegate off your plate, but also how you want to divvy up the work amongst your team. So I'm going to leave the link in the show notes for that if you want to go grab that from the website, because it is an awesome resource to just help you break it down, because we not only walk you through those stages that I talked about in here, but I also get into some of the mindset things around like, okay, so you've decided you're going to do it. Now what gets in the way? Because sometimes even if we've decided we're going to do it, we know exactly what to do. We just like to get in our own way again. And that's those wounds and those thoughts and those things that just block us from doing the right thing or the thing that we know we should do. So if you have found today's episode helpful, please share it with a friend. Go on your podcast app like Apple Podcasts and leave a review, leave a comment if you're on YouTube. So just pass it on, because that helps get this word out. And I want people to be happy at work. And people are happiest at work when they're led well. So I want to spread this knowledge to as many people as I can. So share this with friends, leave a comment, and grab that free resource as well. And I'll see you next time on the Business Building Blocks podcast. Thank you for listening to the Business Building Blocks podcast, where we talk about all things people and organizational wellness, because quality people and processes are at the heart of every successful business. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to hit the subscribe button so you know when new episodes are released. You can also follow me on Instagram at KristinaSchmidt.ca, where I share real-life tips to help in your leadership and life journey. To get one-on-one and team support with your leadership development, book a discovery call on my website at KristinaSchmidt.ca. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.